Welcome to the Can Innovate podcast, the first ever podcast designed to showcase Canadian thought leadership. These innovators share industry insights, entrepreneurial best practices, lessons learned, and other tips that we can incorporate right into our lives, our careers, and our businesses. So let's get inspired. Hey innovators, this week's episode, I get to chat with Greve Young, who is the CEO of Futurpreneur Canada. So this is episode 54, and there is so many value bombs. This episode is really for those that want to actually transition from a Wannapreneur to an entrepreneur. That's right, a Wannapreneur. It is an actual term out there for those that want to be an entrepreneur, but just haven't actually transitioned into being an entrepreneur. So we talk about how Futurpreneur Canada has all of these tools and templates available, from talking about things from financing to mentorship to all these amazing tools. She even talks about like tools that are accessible, like, Rock My Business Plan, and there's how to do cash flows, and they've made it really simplistic. But what they also give you is access to a mentorship, the network, and they even talk about how to prepare for those mentorship initial meetings. So there's so many amazing tips that she talks about. We even talk about biggest entrepreneurial mistakes or gaps, or I like to say as challenges or opportunities. But we talk about that, and she talks about the importance of not drinking your own Kool-Aid. Anyways, this is a great episode. I really hope you enjoy it. This is episode 54. We are really honored today. We've got Greve Young, who is the CEO of Futurpreneur Canada, Canada's only national organization dedicated to supporting young entrepreneurs. Futurpreneur's unique model combines funding, mentorship, and startup programs to fuel the success of thousands of young entrepreneurs in every Canadian province and territory. Now, Karen is way accomplished. Like, she has been a nonprofit leader dedicating from fostering economic and social prosperity through new approaches and partnerships. In fact, prior to joining Futurpreneur in 2018, she was the vice president and corporate development at partnerships at the Mars Discovery District, which is a global innovation hub based here in Toronto. And during her 7-year tenure, she actually led the corporate strategy development, implementation, measurement, and managed a global network of innovative partners and oversaw community engagement, including the marketing, communications, and events. There's so much we can learn from her. She has actually led and had previously held finance and management and strategy roles in San Francisco, New York, London, UK, and even places like Bain & Company, Gap Inc., and the UK's Institute of Cancer Research. And by the way, she's also co-authored a book about her mom, about a shared experience through her mother's ovarian cancer journey. She is both empathetic, sympathetic, and really is somebody that I can admire and inspire to be. So anyways, check out this episode. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Welcome, Karen. I have to tell you, I have been so looking forward to having this interview with you. I am so in love with your concept regarding Futurpreneur Canada, and it's such a different perspective than what I've been kind of showcasing for other areas, that this is not about, someone else's the journey. This is about how Futurpreneur Canada is enabling other people, other entrepreneurs' journeys. So I am so stoked. I can't wait to get into it. So welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here, Sapna.
So how did the birth of Futurpreneur Canada come about?
Well, it's quite an inspiring story, I think, for its longevity. When Futurpreneur Canada started more than 2 decades ago, before I even lived in Canada, much less was part of Futurpreneur, there really wasn't an ecosystem for startup founders. An entrepreneur in Canada, it kind of was met with this somewhat blank canvas and blank landscape and not a whole lot of supports. And in response to that, a group of Canadians, actually first started by some Canadian members of industry and then supported by the federal government, got the idea of providing collateral-free, low-interest loans to entrepreneurs. And then realized that, well, money's part of it, and an important part, and particularly for younger entrepreneurs who don't have a house that they could take a second mortgage on or other equity. Money and access to funds is important. Another important part is mentorship. How do you make sure that these entrepreneurs also get the mentor, the guide, the support individual who can help them on their journey. And that has always been part of the Futurpreneur model for more than 20 years now. It's financing, it's mentorship, and it's tools that young entrepreneurs, generously defined as entrepreneurs under 40, age 18 to 39, can use in order to start their business.
Oh, that is so amazing. I mean, when I looked at your website, there's such a wealth of information. So you were saying that this started about 2 decades ago?
It did. It started more than 20 years ago. And it was national from the get-go. So Futurpreneur is one of the only organizations supporting entrepreneurs that does this in every province and territory. In fact, last year, we helped the first entrepreneur in Nunavut, or the first in our portfolio in Nunavut, start business. So we're in every province, every territory, from coast to coast to coast, as we say in Canada, and serving diverse communities. It's certainly not mostly men or mostly tech. It's diverse and it's national.
That's amazing. So is there a lot of, like, when you say diverse, we're talking like new immigrants as well?
Yeah, so 42% of the entrepreneurs we supported last year were women. I don't have the newcomer, rural, or Indigenous Canadian stats, but we represent all. In fact, I do know for Indigenous Canadians, whom we are trying to make sure that we have appropriate resources for, we serve about the same as the population of Canada, just under 4%. And in smaller communities and larger communities, what matters to us is that it's an entrepreneur who is young, who has a business idea, and who can use the financing and mentorship that we provide in order to bring that business idea to reality.
So this is great. This is really great because I can only imagine the typical entrepreneur journey, and must be kind of really complicated in nature, from starting up with an idea to kind of getting it executed. Can we talk a little bit about the typical entrepreneur journey and how Futurpreneur Canada really supports it?
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I mean, obviously entrepreneurs are people, and so each of their journeys varies based upon their experience. But what we have found in our 2 decades of working with them is that entrepreneurs, they start with passion, they start with their idea, they start with what they want to achieve. And then pretty quickly they realize that they need fuel to achieve this. They need to actually get their idea down in writing. They need to plan it out. They need to get the resources that they need. And often they need the confidence to actually start, particularly for younger entrepreneurs and particularly for women or newcomer entrepreneurs who might not have the networks that they think that they can rely upon. So entrepreneurs come to us at various stages. Some of them have started companies before. For some of them, this is the first time. For some of them, they're still thinking about their business as a part-time endeavor. But however they come in, the first thing we do is help them understand whether they're eligible for our loan financing, and start to embark on the process of applying. So they join us. They find out whether our financing and mentorship package is the right kind of program for them. And then we do a lot of hand-holding as they're writing their business plan. We have an online business plan writer tool, and we also have really fun workshops called Rock My Business Plan to help people get the ideas, generate the ideas that will ultimately become their plan. And then we help them think about their financials, prepare their cash flow statement. A lot of that foundational work that entrepreneurs would need to do for any financing that they get. But again, since these are younger entrepreneurs, and for many of them, it's their first go, we're the first time going through this. So it can be quite challenging for them, and having their Futurpreneur team member help them along, we hope, gives them a better chance of completing their application, ultimately getting the financing and mentoring they need. And then at that point, we also can connect them to other financing tools. They often will be in a position to raise additional funds after getting our loan, or they might intend to stay small, and our loan helps them open their first shop. We serve Main Street businesses and tech businesses, a whole range. And they might intend to stay small, but steadfast retail shop, restaurant, in a small town and never need additional financing, but couldn't have gotten started without ours.
It's so amazing. Like, I can't get over all the tips, like all the tools that you have for every journey of it. It's unbelievable. Because I was looking at, the website in depth, and it even talks about if you got your social purpose business, how to create a customer empathy map. I think there's just so many tips and techniques here that's just giving everybody the toolkit to be successful.
Yes. Absolutely. And again, it varies for each of them. I mean, what is exciting for us and why I joined Futurpreneur 3 months ago is that our client at the center of our own map is that entrepreneur. And what can we do to help her start her business, grow her business, be successful in her business, understand her own customers or clients, and ultimately create a thriving business in whatever town or community across Canada she is in. Some of these businesses will become huge export businesses or massive Canadian businesses. Two of the businesses we've supported or entrepreneurs we've supported who have scaled are Skip the Dishes in Winnipeg or out of Winnipeg, and Elastic Path in Vancouver. Some of them will stay small. They'll be the vegan restaurant in Halifax or the car detailing business.
I know, it's amazing. I know what I love is that it was funny because I had another episode that I was talking to a couple of VCs, and they were talking about how important it is to have a really good meeting and how to have a productive meeting where everyone has a win-win situation. So even when you're networking. And then I was so surprised when I looked at your website that it even has prepping for mentor meetings and to make it a win-win, go in with an objective so that every time you're networking, it's kind of really making it feasible that you're driving something forward, making small wins forward. Really is amazing website. Everybody that's listening, you gotta check it out. It is so worth the time. You will not lose. It's definitely win-win. It's for everybody.
Well, thank you. I couldn't agree more and do appreciate the plug. And will you be providing our website address to listeners afterwards? Or
absolutely. I'm going to put it in the show notes. They'll have all the links. It'll be easy, quick. And I'm going to tag a couple of my favorite tools that I think people really definitely need to utilize, especially when our audience has sent me emails about certain things, about how to network more effectively, how to make things, matter, how to close some sales. And you've got some really great little freebies in there. So I'm definitely going to link some of my favorite freebies there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, I love it. So what excites you most about this whole entrepreneurship industry? Because it seems to be the big buzzword that's happening, because either people are doing it full time or they're doing it as a side hustle, or there's that terminology being a Wannapreneur. So they have that idea, but they're not quite ready to jump into being an entrepreneur.
And it's interesting. And I think that people tend to use entrepreneur as it is the umbrella term for people starting a business. Obviously, there are many different types of entrepreneurs. And in my last few years, I was with an organization, Mars Discovery District, that really focuses on particularly science and tech-driven business creation by entrepreneurs, and particularly those that can grow and scale, which continues to be really important. We need those companies to grow and scale from their Canadian headquarters and root system to succeed. But what brought me to Futurpreneur, and what I'm really excited about, is the breadth and scope of all of the Main Street businesses in Canada that mean that Canadians from smaller towns can come back to their small town after college or university, or stay there to begin with and have vibrant job opportunities, have the restaurants and service businesses that they would have in a larger city without having to go to a large city. That's when you look at a lot of what's happening in the world right now, it's really important that we focus on opportunities that are broader, that are rural and urban, that are for the whole wonderful, diverse range of people, whether they're doing it, as you say, part-time as a side hustle or full-time, whether they're doing it to start a small business or start what they hope will be a global leader, a global powerhouse. We support all of those businesses. And that's what I think is exciting and frankly different about Futurpreneur is our national scope and the fact that we really are for all kinds of businesses, whereas later in their stage, they can access different resources depending on where they play.
Love it. So Karen, I have to ask, since being at Futurpreneur Canada, has there been any highlights that you kind of think, wow, I can't believe I was part of?
Yeah, there have. And really, it's every single one of them has to do with getting out into the field and visiting our teams across the country and entrepreneurs. So a really brilliant back-to-back experience I had recently was being in Halifax and then in Montreal. So in Halifax, I got to visit House of Auto Details, which is an auto detailing company, a female-founded auto detailing company in Nova Scotia that is doing great work, found a gap in the market, started their business, and several years later are going strong. And then the very next day in Montreal, I met Nathan Kong, who has a bespoke tailoring business, men's custom suits, the linings of which are created by local artists, and some of them are created from art that is done by patients at local mental health facilities. So you have this extraordinary social business where they're beautiful suits bought by leading business people in Canada, and some of the proceeds go back to the mental health community, and in fact, raising awareness for mental health, which is such a vital challenge that we all have as Canadians and something that really needs a voice. So being on the front lines, meeting these very different, similar in that they were both immigrants to Canada, but one very recently, one quite a long time ago, who we were able to be part of their experience launching their dreams. That is just so exciting to me.
Oh, it does. And their business models sound phenomenal. We're definitely going to have to get them on the podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, that is so amazing. That's great. So, out of curiosity, what is the biggest entrepreneurial mistake out there that you see from time and time again?
I think it takes a certain amount of confidence to start a business. It's a huge leap of faith. So that's an important aspect of being an entrepreneur, is that confidence. It needs to not then go the next level to arrogance or hubris and an assumption that an entrepreneur knows all the answers. I think as soon as an entrepreneur stops listening to people who disagree with her or with him, that is a recipe for disaster. So whether it's listening to customers or just having advisors, mentors who you trust and who you know will say things straight, even when it's not what the entrepreneur wants to hear, that's vital.
I love it. I love it. It's funny because we actually had Ariel Garten from Muse, and we did an episode. Yeah, she's so brilliant. Episode 45, we did the whole thing about having an innovation mindset and about those confidence blockers. And we actually do a bunch of exercises on there that really kind of untie those knots in our head and help us really propel forward. So I agree with you when you're saying it, but the biggest entrepreneurial mistake, it's just that confidence. You just need that to know that you can do it.
Yeah, you need the confidence, and you need to make sure that you're not only drinking your own Kool-Aid.
Tell me more.
Well, so, one of the things that you and I talked about are, what business reading, what podcasts, what I have listened to that's been resonant. And one of the podcasts that I heard, and I will confess, I've heard several of yours and loved them, and your length is the right length for me. There's a much longer one that I heard recently. It's part of the Knowledge Project with Shane Parrish, and it's episode 37, Getting Better by Being Wrong. It's a conversation with a professional poker player named Annie Duke, and she talks about how really to be better, you actually need to invite people with differing opinions and learn to disagree objectively. So I do think that is an opportunity. And of course, you need to do it without losing your confidence. So again, finding those safe people where there's an agreement of how it's done is important. But it does feel really critical to not only help businesses start, but help them actually grow and avoid the pitfalls that can come from narrowing your focus to the point where you're blindsided by things that come along the way.
Oh, I love that tips. Invite people with different opinions.
Yes.
It totally uncovers your blind spots. I love that. That's a great tip. So is there any other tools or resources you could recommend that our entrepreneurs kind of leverage that might be out there?
Well, there are so many. I think we certainly, as you referenced several times, our website has a lot of tools, tips, resources, lived experience from other entrepreneurs. I will make a plug for my past and complementary organization. Mars Discovery District has its startup library, which also is just full of fantastic tools for entrepreneurs at various stages. I think the other thing is partners. We talked about the power of mentors, and that's obviously an important part of our model, and I think an important ingredient to success. Also, partners, whether they are community partners, whether they are partners in your sales or distribution channel, having those organizations that complement you and what you're doing and can be part of your network and mutually fuel success are really important.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. And do you have a kind of a sales or marketing tip that our entrepreneurs or wannapreneurs to entrepreneurs can leverage?
I think this isn't even entrepreneur specific, but just generally, sometimes we focus so much on the messages that we want to get out that we as humans forget that there's a human on the other end of the messages that we're trying to relay. And we forget that we put things in what we want to convey, not what we want them to hear and feel. And so I think always keeping your customer in mind or your client in mind and focusing on what's in it for them. What are they looking for from what you're doing? And then just repeat, because they need to hear it more than once. They need to hear it in many different ways, and then provide them excellent customer service. That's what we try to do for our entrepreneurs that we support, is make sure that we are a really positive part of their journey.
Oh, that's a brilliant. I love that. What's in it for them? And then
Yes.
repeat.
Exactly.
That is a solid tip. I think that's a great value bomb. So Karen, you juggle so many balls, and I'm always looking for inspiration and best practices on personal habits. Do you have one that you could share with us that's helped you become more successful?
I do. For me, it's all about the morning. It's all about how I start the day. And I start early. I have children who are busy in the evenings, and I'm busy with them in the evenings. So I have to start the day. That's my time to get a jump start. And I get up early in the morning. I work out. I journal and to set myself up for the day. And then I get a couple of hours of work done. And then the last thing I do every single day before I start getting ready to, and getting my kids ready and getting myself to work, the last thing I do is that I muse. Sometimes it's only 3 minutes. Sometimes it's 5 or 10, but I use my Muse headband to meditate, be mindful, set myself up for the day that I want to have.
Ah, I love it. I have just become a crazy addict to Muse myself. And you can actually listen to her in episode 41 where she talks about Muse and the benefits and all the health benefits. But I'm with you. I think it's changed my life enormously.
Wonderful. Yeah, my longest stretch was 96 days.
What? That's crazy. That's amazing.
I know. I couldn't believe it. And then the stretch broke, and I'll admit I felt a little bit of relief that if I missed one, I wasn't breaking my record.
Oh, I love it. Well, hats off to Ariel and the group of Muse.
Absolutely.
So is there any other advice that you could provide to our aspiring or budding innovators out there?
I think I'd give a quote, actually, because a lot of the people that Futurpreneur works with, as we mentioned, are still deciding whether or not to start their business. And I think there's never been a better time to start a business in Canada. One of my favorite quotes, and I think I've heard it attributed to so many different people that I'm not sure where the origin was, but It's the quote that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. And that is true for everyone in every walk of life every day. If you are trying to embark on a new path, there's never a better time than right now. And organizations like Futurpreneur and our partners at the BDC, at Mars, at community finance organizations across the country are here to help you get started.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that quote. I can already see the image. Obviously, it's a tree budding from some small seeds.
Exactly.
And there's so much inspiration out there. I mean, is there a company or CEO that you watch or follow closely that you kind of get inspired by?
I will admit, I find Melinda Gates absolutely extraordinary. I think that what she and Bill Gates have done with their foundation has revolutionized health and welfare for people throughout the world. And she has become a very powerful voice. I find what she says and does incredibly resonant. Similarly, I find Richard Branson very inspiring, and he has I think, some of the best social media of any business leader in the world. And then finally, someone who I knew when I was in San Francisco, who's really become a champion for gender agnostic investing, is Aileen Lee of Cowboy Ventures, who really quite a brilliant venture capital investor herself, and has become a really important voice in the sector.
Oh, that's great. I have to tell you, I've been a huge fan of Sir Richard Branson for God knows how many years, but what I think is really interesting is his stories that he tells.
Yes.
Oh, they're so mind-blowing, especially when he talks about how Virgin Airlines was competing with BA. It's unbelievable, of how all the deceit and all the shenanigans that are happening in the background and all the obstacles he had to overcome. He's just the best storyteller.
It's true. It's true. I don't know if I could keep up, but I would love to spend a day in the life of.
Oh my God. I think I actually follow him on Instagram just to get sneak peeks from him. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm with you on that. I get juiced up when I hear his name too. I just think he's phenomenal. So, being that you are here in Canada, is there any cool, interesting restaurants, places or festivals, cities that you've discovered out here?
Yeah, there are a couple, and I'll share one that's close to home and one that is a new discovery of mine. We are part of the Toronto cottage culture. Our cottage is in a tiny village where my mother-in-law grew up. It's about an hour past Huntsville. And for Torontonians, it's considered the very distant far north. And yet, if you look at a map of Ontario, it's not very far at all. It's barely an eighth of the way up the province. On the way, there's a place called Weber's on Highway 11 in Aurelia, which has the best burgers, poutine, hot dogs that you could possibly want, and fantastic picnic setting. And it's become a destination for many, many Ontarians on the way to and from cottages in the summer. So that's an old favorite. A new favorite that I discovered this summer visiting our team in Atlantic Canada is the Halifax Central Library, which just is everything that a community experience aspires to be, I think. It brings together the community, obviously, with books and a focus on literacy and literature, also with career resources, also with health and wellness resources, very accessible, architecturally spectacular. If you're in Halifax, I would definitely recommend the Halifax Central Library.
Oh, I love that. I'm a huge library junkie, so maybe I might just make a trip out there to eat their seafood and check out the library.
It's worth it, and we could recommend some Futurpreneur-supported restaurants for while you're there.
Done and done. I've been looking for a reason to go out East Coast, so yes.
Perfect.
That's perfect. Seriously, Karen, you've just been an absolute blast. I cannot believe all the value bombs you have shared with us. Finally, how can our listeners connect with you?
So I am on Twitter at Karen Greve Young. I'm on LinkedIn. You'll get our website, www.futurpreneur.ca. Please connect with me any of these ways. And if you are looking to start or grow a business, we have people across the country ready to help you do that.
Amazing. I'll put all the links in the show notes so no one has to go too far.
Perfect. Thanks, Safra. It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, thank you. You are just brilliant beyond belief, and I can't wait for everyone else to partake in it.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Thanks for tuning in this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And next week, I got another really fun episode. You'll be surprised at the topics we're going to cover. But anyways, in the meantime, you don't have to wait till next week to connect with us. You can connect with us always on all the different social media links. You can even send us a review. That's another great place to give feedback. And of course, our new newsletter that has tons of new golden nuggets and of course, discounts galore. Actually, our tools section of the website also have it. And please feel free to nominate another innovator out there. And I can't wait to talk to you next week.